This is The Toss-Up, where an expert line panel dissects the hottest stories within the world of sports. From some of the nation's strongest college programs right here in Bloomington to the games and moments that capture the world's attention, it's all right here on The Toss-Up. Well, we have officially made it to the MLB Playoffs, and let me just say how relieved I am. There were so many times this year when I really didn't know if we would get here. Quick recap. The COVID-19 pandemic shut down sports during spring training, and the owners and players could not agree on the best way to start the season, so after months and months and months of waiting, we got our 60-game season, but the minor leagues were canceled for the year. Several players opted out. Teams missed games due to COVID-19 outbreaks. I mean, at one point, over half of the Marlins roster had tested positive, but somehow we made it. And in the playoffs, anything can happen. And what's more unpredictable than 10 of baseball's best fighting for their lives? Well, how about 16 teams all facing off in a wild card best-of-3 game series? So after a season of hard work and admittedly some chaos, one team will lift that World Series trophy in a few weeks. And we are here to talk about who that team could be here on The Toss-Up. So hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. Join me on the panel this week. We have Stephen Walker and Jordan Gould, two baseball knowledge experts, and I'm so excited to have you guys on the panel. So welcome to the show, and I think we should just jump right in, Stephen, with the new playoff format. As we've mentioned, 16 teams all going head-to-head, these 3-game series at home for this first wild card round. Everyone's in a wild card round. How do you think this affects the structure of the playoffs and the impact that it could have as we go down the line?
Well, I think from a pure fan perspective, this is as good as it gets because you just get more baseball. I mean, on Wednesday, we had 8 playoff games. I was on the couch. I didn't move. I was in one spot for over 12 hours watching 8 postseason games. So from the fan perspective, it's amazing. And I have to think, I don't know if they'll keep this in the future. If they do, from the league perspective, it's also going to be great because you're just going to generate some more money, more revenue. So the 8 games on one day, 16 total teams in it. I mean, it's good from those two perspectives. I think the only thing, the players, that's also a lot of games to be played, so it could be a little different from the players. But if you're a fan, this is what you want.
Yeah, and Jordan, obviously a lot of these games, it's a lot of fun to see, but how do you think that some of these rules might affect some of the teams, some of the players, and even as we get deeper on some of these matchups that we might see?
Well, sure. I know we've had talks in recent weeks about teams like the Dodgers, who are the 1 seed in the NL, the Rays, the 1 seed in the AL. How does this current system help their cause in advancing, further? Because this is the wild card round, if we're being technical here, and typically, only a handful of teams, 4 in the past, have been playing in those games. Only this past decade, there used to be just one wild card team. There was no such thing as this wild card game. But I do like how MLB has added teams into the mix. It makes things more interesting. I think more people are paying closer attention as the season winds down in September. And money talks, right? I mean, at the end of the day, more TV revenue, like you were saying, it's just kind of makes just another reason for why more postseason baseball is so exciting.
Yeah, it really is exciting. And we've talked about the change to the playoff format, but there's been a ton of changes just throughout the regular season and this 60-game season. We've got that 3-batter pitcher minimum now. We have new extra inning rules, which aren't actually active in the playoffs right now. And, of course, the National League DH. So, Jordan, going back to you, which of these rules do you think we see expanded down the line in the future, full seasons? And which of them do you think really should stick around?
Yeah, to me, it's kind of clear, the universal DH. I think it's fun at times to watch a pitcher hit. We all remember Bartolo Colon's awesome home run. I saw he's got a softball celebrity game recently, hitting dingers still, so that's kind of fun. But I don't know. I think it adds something if you have a hitter in that position, and I never really understood why one league has it and not, other than. I don't know. I can't even think of a reason, to be honest. Just because I think it just adds so many other layers to having a designated hitter in your lineup where, I mean, you're bringing in a pitcher there. And I mean, I've seen managers put a pitcher in the 8-hole, maybe change strategies like that, but you have them in to bunt, move a guy over, or just stand out there for 3 pitches and, swing it, maybe a strike right down the middle they just can't catch up to. So universal DH makes the most sense to me. I think it'll stick around.
Yeah. Steven, what about you of some of these rules? Obviously, universal DH being a big one, but we've also got, 3-batter minimum, put a runner on second base to start every extra inning. Do you think some of these are going to stick around?
I do. I mean, the universal DH, I think that's a no-brainer. Like you said, it's going to stick around. It helps teams, especially, one team that comes to mind is like the Chicago Cubs. You can take a guy like Kyle Schwarber out of left field, get the kind of defensive liability out of there, and keep his bat in the lineup. I think the 3-pitcher minimum will also stick around because, now as we're changing the game nowadays, baseball is getting younger, so the fan base is getting younger. They're trying to get the, play of pace along and get the games going faster. And I think keeping the 3-batter minimum on pitchers will do that. You're not taking a guy, going to the right-hander, the next at-bat, left-hander back to the righty. So just to keep the pace of play moving along, I think they will do that. And I don't know if they'll keep this format in the postseason, like I said, but I do think they will expand it at least 1 or 2 more teams on each side to get the extra games, get the fans more invested, and just to get that extra revenue.
Yeah, and to touch on universal DH, which you both mentioned, I'm coming from a very National League perspective. Those have been the teams I followed growing up. So when I first learned about that, I was a little disappointed. I was going to miss the idea of the pitchers hitting. But through the span of the season, I've fully been converted. I mean, I think it's a lot more fun to watch a fluid offense with the DH, and I really haven't missed the pitchers like I thought I was going to. And then, yes, expanded playoffs can add a lot more teams. So there's plenty of things to consider as we get down into the future. But first, I'm going to come back around to the current playoffs, where we've already mentioned a handful of the teams that are currently in it. We can see right in front of us we've got a handful of jerseys of teams that are currently in the playoffs. And, of course, as we speak, some teams are being eliminated, are playing active games. This show will come out a day later. But as we look at the full scope of the playoffs, Steven, we've got a top tier. We've probably got a middle tier and a bottom tier. Where's the gap between some of these top teams and just sort of the rest of the field?
I don't think the gap is as big as a lot of people might think. I mean, as you know, you're a Dodgers fan. You saw in Game 1 of that series, it was a close game down to the end, and that's with a rookie pitcher walking in 2 runs, and that was that close of a game. Kenley Jansen had to strike out Christian Yelich just to end it, and that was a 1-8 game. Same thing with the Rays. I mean, they did handle the Blue Jays, but that's a young team, so that's going to happen. But then you have the 7-seed White Sox who had a fantastic year. So I don't think the gap is as big as it is, and it's October. In October, anything can happen. Any team can win on any given day. So the gap, I mean, there is a little bit of a gap between 1 down to 6 or 7, but I think a lot of people might exaggerate that gap. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it's October. Anyone can win. So in the end, talent-wise, there are going to be the guys that are going to come out, and the Dodgers who just ran through the MLB this year with the best record. But I mean, they're going to have some tough series if they're going to want to win the World Series. So I don't think the gap's as big as people might think it is. Yeah,
I mean, definitely anything can happen. And Jordan, who are some of these teams that you think might be juggernauts? And I mean, what weaknesses are there that could knock them down?
Yeah, I mean, I do see the Dodgers as a team, specifically the NL, that is just, I mean, you think about the firepower. They go out this offseason and land a guy like a Mookie Betts, who you just add another MVP caliber player to that lineup, in addition to Cody Bellinger. You lose Alex Verdugo, but I mean, you don't really, you pick up right where you left off. You get a guy like a David Price who opted out, didn't even play this season. I mean, and they're still, 43-17, I believe, the best record in baseball this year. So I think the Dodgers are the juggernaut. When you look at them, though, I don't know. I mean, we've had the conversation, Drew. I know that you know, in a 3-game series like this one, for instance, it's all about matchups, particularly in the postseason. You look at teams such as like the Cardinals, who have a great track record of competing in the postseason well. The Dodgers have kind of fallen short, aside from 2017, obviously now controversial. But aside from that, they've kind of just fallen flat. And the postseason, everyone knows anything can happen. It comes down to bullpens typically and pitching. And, I wonder, you got to go out there and you got to see what playoff Kershaw you get. You get the good and the bad, especially if you match up against the Cardinals, which could happen.
Exactly.
You don't know yet. Cardinals-Padres series still going on to this point. But, yeah, I think in the NL, it's it's the Dodgers. In the AL, I think it's a little more wide open, especially now that we've seen the Yankees come on against the Indians like they did, 2 games there. That offense, I think, is really what everyone maybe imagined it would be. Now that you have Giancarlo Stanton heating up, Gleyber Torres looked really good in that 2-game series. So I think they could definitely challenge the Rays, and that'll set up for a good ALDS series right there.
Yeah, I think the Yankees and Indians was probably one of the potentially most competitive series that we've seen. Just 2 great teams who both could actually have made a run. And, of course, we saw the Yankees come out on top of that. But, I mean, yeah, as you mentioned matchups, I mean, the Miami Marlins, who took the first game against the Cubs, they've got 2 great pitchers in Sandy Alcantara and Sixto Sanchez, and that could be enough in this first round to knock off the NL Central champions. I mean, we'll still see. There's still more baseball to be played, and, of course, there's still more show for us now. So coming up after the break, we will hear from Will Trubshaw. Plus, we'll be back with our own predictions, so make sure you stick with us.
As if 2020 wasn't bizarre enough already, baseball fans were treated to 8 playoff games in one day, a feat never before accomplished in baseball history. It happened thanks to the MLB's Fall Frenzy wildcard round that allowed 16 major league teams a chance to play for a shot at the World Series this year, coming off the heels of an abbreviated 60-game season thanks to the COVID-19 pandemic. The wildcard round created 8 best-of-3 series that will give way to the normal league division, league championship, and World Series format we've come to know and love. The new format allowed teams like the Milwaukee Brewers to make the postseason with a .483 winning percentage, the lowest ever for a playoff team. The Houston Astros didn't bang up the AL West like we're used to, finishing the year with the same record as the Brewers. Yet their low seeding gave them the opportunity to sweep the AL Central champ Minnesota Twins, who can't seem to win in October no matter how many extra games you give them. The Chicago White Sox, San Diego Padres, and Miami Marlins broke playoff droughts of 12, 14, and 17 years respectively. And the Oakland A's broke a team drought, winning a postseason game for the first time since 2006. Perhaps the most 2020 thing of all to happen so far was the 13-inning scoreless thriller between the Reds and Braves that ended on Freddie Freeman's walk-off single. And as a reminder, we're not past the wild card round just yet. But I'll posit this. These playoffs aren't that weird. Frankly, the MLB postseason has always been wild. From Billy Goats and Black Cats to Buckner and Bartman, baseball asks you to expect the unexpected. In 2006, the St. Louis Cardinals took their modest 83-79 record all the way to their 10th World Series title. And 8 years later, 2 wildcard teams fought in the Fall Classic for the first time ever, with the San Francisco Giants beating the Kansas City Royals in 7 games. And last year, the Washington Nationals overcame a 19-31 start to the year to conquer the wild card and all of baseball to claim their first title. Every year, curses are lifted and dynasties are cemented in October. The abnormality of baseball's postseason is perhaps the most normal thing we get to see this year. So pull up a chair, flip on your team's radio broadcast to avoid ESPN's announcers, and get ready for another Fall Classic. Drew, back to you.
Thanks, Will. All right, now we're back on the toss-up, back on our panel, and it's time for a game here. This is a pretty simple one. I just call this pick a team, any team. It's like a card, but they're teams. Super. I did a great job of explaining it. I'm really creative with these ideas I'm coming up with. But yeah, so I think the premise is pretty simple. I'm going to give you sort of a category, and I want you to pick a team that you think that this best applies to. So we're going to start off, Steven, with you. And here we're talking about clutch. Talk about that X factor. Pick a team, any team, who, if their backs are against the wall in this playoff series, let's say they're down 3-1 in the World Series or 3-2 in the championship series, which team do you trust the most with their backs against the wall to come back and win it?
Oh, well, this might be a little bit of my bias showing, but I'm going to say the New York Yankees because we saw it in Game 2. It was like a snap of the fingers. They were down 4-0, and their backs weren't against the wall. They were up 1-0. But, I mean, you're on the road in Cleveland. You're facing Carlos Carrasco, a very good pitcher on that team. And, you know, Giancarlo Stanton hits a home run, gets them on the board. Then a little bit later, we're in the 4th inning, just start, you know, hacking away, get a couple hits, get some walks. And then Gio Urshela, big grand slam off the rookie, Karinchak. Now, then they had to fight back again. They were down again in that game. They went up on a Gary Sanchez home run. Then they were down 9-8. They had to come back. They tied the game in the 9th. And then they won the game off of a DJ LeMahieu single up the middle on Brad Hand, who was the best closer in baseball this season. Now, if they can do that against, you know, one of the best closers in the game and against a very good Cleveland Indian team, they're going to face the Rays, who, if they get out to a lead, they have really good pitching. They have a great bullpen. And this offense is very capable of handling a good bullpen and good pitching, and they're going to have to do that if they want to advance to the ALCS and the World Series. So I think with their offense and with their pitching, I think they can handle any situation where they're against the wall.
Yeah, I think the Yankees are a great pick for that factor. Jordan, what do you have?
Well, I want to dispute your Yankees pick, and I will tell you
Oh.
why. I was watching that game yesterday, and I'm sorry, but the Indians have struggled all season long on offense, and for them to get to the bullpen when they were down multiple times, it seems like Aaron Boone, I'll be honest, I think he really mismanaged that game yesterday multiple
you know
times.
what? That's where we can agree. I also think he did. Putting Loaisaga in when he did, I think was a bad decision.
I think when you're down, say, 3-1, and it's the World Series, something like that, you need a manager. It's all about managing, right? I mean, you know that Dave Roberts, think about how much criticism he's received in the postseason of the last several years.
Yeah,
I think it comes down to managing and matchups, so I think that's got to come into play. But if I had to pick a team, it's tough. I like what the Rays have. I do. I was impressed by their 2-game series. I wasn't hot on them before this started because I wanted to see how they'd fare against, you know, different competition. Granted, they've seen the Blue Jays, right? Because granted, with this season format, they've only played National League East teams along with American League East teams. So that's why I think in the Yankees-Indians series, for instance, both those teams never saw each other. It was, you know, I think it was advantage to the better offense in that series, in my opinion, which was the Yankees. So we'll see how the Rays look going forward, but I think they're well managed. They're sound fundamentally. They don't beat themselves, and I think that's what it comes down to. So I like what the Rays have done. I was impressed by their little performance they had, the couple games they played against the Blue Jays. So I'll say the Rays for now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, well, sorry, Drew, but
Oh, you have a rebuttal?
to your point about the mismanaging, despite the fact that Aaron Boone may have mismanaged that game, who wins the game? It's the players on the field, and they came out despite the mismanagement of the bullpen, because I do think he shouldn't have put Loaisaga in when he did. And that led to the lead being given up, and they had to fight from behind. And then, like you mentioned, the best offense won that game because the Yankees' offense is very good, top to bottom. We had the bottom of the order got that started for the Yankees against the Indians, and then the top of the order finished off the job. And against a team like the Rays, who has very good pitching, it's going to be the top to bottom effort. So I think when the backs are against the walls, the offense is going to get them back into that game because anyone can do it 1 through 9 in that lineup.
Yeah, and while you're speaking to, a lot of it is players, and I think you're correct in that, and that's why, I mean, looking over at the National League, I do think that the Cardinals could potentially make a run, similar to the Nationals did, slip in that last wild card, and then, I mean, they slipped in at the end of the season out as the last wild card, but even still, and just with a whole slew of players that know what it's like to win, guys like Wainwright, guys like Carpenter, I mean, these are guys that have that experience, so they are a potential threat. But, I mean, while we're on the topic of the Cardinals, this could apply to them too. With the expanded formats, a lot of teams made the playoffs that wouldn't have normally made it. Both in the American League and the National League, we had 2 sub-500 teams in the playoffs, in the Brewers and the Astros. So, of the teams that are currently in the playoffs, whether they're still alive or not, which teams do you think are the best ones? Switch that. Which teams of the ones that just missed are the best ones? So, out of everyone that just fell short to the Brewers, just fell short to the Astros, which teams are the best non-playoff teams?
Number 1, I think, is the Philadelphia Phillies. They have a great roster. They have a great lineup. Good pitching staff with Nola, and they just got Zach Wheeler. So they have good pitching. They have a good bullpen. And their lineup with JT Realmuto, you got Bryce Harper, Didi Gregorius, who just got traded there, had himself a pretty good year. I mean, they were just short. If they would have won on the last game of the season, they would have been in. The Brewers would have been out. but they weren't able to do that. All the pieces fell for them to do it, but they couldn't capitalize against the Tampa Bay Rays. So I think in the next season, I don't know what it's going to look like with the playoff format, but I do think they have a very good chance of making the playoffs, and especially if it goes back to the regular 162-game season, because like you said, they added a few extra guys, and to do that in just a 60-game season, the chemistry might not be there, and you don't know how well you can play with guys, and they also had the new manager. You don't know how he can facilitate and manage the team in certain situations. So next season, I think they're going to learn from this just missing, and I think next season they're going to come back and they're going to get it in.
Yeah, and Jordan, a lot of teams that did fall short. Which teams do you have your eye on who were still solid teams and maybe have a shot in the future?
Yeah, so you look at Philadelphia, which I think there's pressure to win there, definitely. I think another market, how about the other team in LA or Anaheim, the Angels? I just don't understand how they continually fail to win. They can't even get to 500. I just don't understand how you have the greatest player that arguably by the time he's done to ever play the game, and Mike Trout, his ability on offense, defense, what he could do. They just go get a guy like an Anthony Rendon in free agency. The pitching is a trouble, but I think you have pieces to build around there, which why can't you win? You go out and get a Joe Madden this offseason. Granted, I know Cubs fans were indifferent on how his term ended there, but granted, he won a World Series.
He did.
In 2016. What he did with the Rays was impressive, when the Rays weren't the powerhouse, dare I say it, but what they are now,
Exactly.
The Angels, it's my pick. They fell short. I would say the Mets as well, just because of the pitching that they have. I think pitching is really critical. You get a guy like DeGrom, and you continually, I don't want to say waste years, but you just have to be able to capitalize while you have these guys. And it doesn't make sense. You just continue to add, and it worked for the Padres, right, this season. They continually added. They go and get Manny Machado, and they start to build off of him. Eric Hosmer, they trade for Tatis and a deal for James Shields.
And the Padres have the pitching, too.
Yep.
And I think that's one of the issues we've seen with the Angels. They don't have that pitching, but the Mets is the other way around. If you could just combine the Mets and the Angels, that would be
because if you combine them, because the Mets have better pitching, I think where they lacked was their offense. If they can get one or two bats in there, like you said, that the Padres did, then they can be a better team. And then like the Angels, I think when you said how do you lose, how do they not win, I think it comes down to the pitching. And I think they have some questions to be answered, and some of them will be answered when they hire a new GM in this offseason. But with Trout, and then you add Rendon, and you had a rookie Jared Walsh, who had himself a great end of the season.
And also
the two-way superstar of Ohtani, they need to win
the Angels
now.
do have a lot to look forward to. And while we're looking forward, let's look at next season again and talk about some of these teams that are currently in the playoffs, what I tried to swing around to earlier.
Yeah.
So pick a team, any team, of a current playoff team who next season, assuming that the playoffs revert back to its standard format, even if it doesn't, a team, Steven, that is most likely to just completely whiff next year.
Any team, you say?
Pick a team, any team.
I can pick any team.
Any team.
Let me pick a team from the table.
There you go.
This might be a bold choice. I don't care. The Houston Astros. Like we were talking about the Angels. If the Angels were just a halfway competent baseball team this season and won a few more games, the Houston Astros would have missed the postseason. It's as simple as that, because the Angels would have been the 2 seed in their division. The Houston Astros offensively this year, look at their big guys, Altuve, Springer, Reddick, Correa. They had their offensive numbers were way down. Average-wise, Altuve barely broke 200.
Yeah, he was 220.
And this is a guy that hit 340 in 2017. I don't know if that's just solely because of the cheating scandal. If it in the wake of that, the players were the media attention was on him and they kind of shuffled. But you tweeted, and I want to bring up your tweet because you said the Astros. I don't remember exactly what their record was.
Yes.
But they were significantly better at home than they were on the road this season.
They were.
And you said coincidence? I don't know, but I think the Astros, if the Angels can get the pieces in place, get one, maybe two good pitchers, and maybe one better offensive weapon, I think they will compete for a division crown, and I think they will keep the Houston Astros out of postseason contention.
They very well could. And Jordan, I'll let you make your pick real quick. And one team that you have very little faith in for the next season.
Yeah, I would say I'm not huge. I'm not high on the Brewers. I'm not. Granted, they go as Christian Yelich goes. He won the MVP last year. He hit 205 this season. That's not going to cut it.
Yeah.
They also lost Lorenzo Cain when he opted out, which I think was, I think that was important. But I'm just not high on their starting pitching rotation. But to be fair to your Astros point real quick, they did lose Garrett Cole in free agency, Justin Verlander to injury. Guess their top two pitchers right there. Zach Greinke wasn't the same pitcher this year. So, I mean, there are certain things there. They weren't maybe set up to do as well as they were this year. But 29-31 like they did, probably we're hoping for a little better than that. But, you know.
Yeah, well, then and you bring up, you know, they lost Garrett Cole, so there's a hole in the rotation. And then Justin Verlander, I mean, he's not getting any younger, and he's going to come off a Tommy John surgery next season. So how is he going to look? I mean, he did just win the Cy Young last year, but I mean, with his age and coming off of a significant surgery like that, I mean, we don't know what he's going to look like. So I think Lance McCullers and, you know, Zach Greinke are going to be the 1-2 guys next year, probably as, you know, he recovers from his surgery, and we'll see how the pitching goes in the offense. If it's like it is this year, I don't see with that pitching how they can make the postseason.
Yeah. So on the topic from some of these teams that are letdowns, we are going to wrap up the show with our one big prediction. So both Steven and Jordan, I'm going to give you a shot to call the championship team, the top dog this year, 2020 World Series champions. You can give me the team that wins it, who they beat, how many games, MVP, however many predictions you feel confident in throwing out. Jordan, I do want to start with you on this one. I want to hear, who do you have winning it all as we stand right now?
Okay. So on the Out of Play podcast, shout out Will Trubshaw, Jackson Kinney as well.
Of course.
I did have a 2016 rematch going in Cubs Indians just because I liked the pitching and I kind of liked what the Cubs brought, but obviously they got to get past the wild card round, right? And Indians didn't. Cubs will be battling Game 2 on Friday, but I would say the Dodgers looked real. I mean, they looked real impressive in Game 1, as did the Rays in their series. I don't want to go one-on-one. The Yankees looked really good, so I don't know. I'd probably do Yankees-Dodgers. That's so basic. I hate myself for saying that. But, I mean,
I love
Yankees are heating up. I mean,
They are.
the only thing that could stop I could see potentially is their pitching, but I think that they're just a superior team to the Rays on offense, and I think it's just going to come down to that because they just exposed the Cleveland's pitching, and I think Cleveland's pitching is better than Tampa Bay's. So I don't know. And Dodgers are sound. I think they're a clear-cut National League best team. So I don't know. We'll see what the Cubs do. I think they could potentially threaten the Dodgers, but the way I'm seeing it right now, it's Dodgers-Yankees in my opinion.
Yeah, Steven, what's your prediction?
I want to say thank you for saying the Yankees because I don't know because the pitching, I think in October pitching, you got to have pitching, and
You're right.
that the Rays have a better 1-2-3 than the Yankees. It's not even close. I mean, Garrett Cole is the best pitcher in the series, but then you have the Rays. They have Blake Snell, they have Tyler Glasnow, they have Charlie Morton. These are good guys, and you know Charlie Morton knows how to win in October. He did it to the Yankees in 2017. With the Astros.
Thing is,
so
if the Yankees score 10 runs a
they
game,
did,
their starter can give up 5. It doesn't matter.
Can they keep that production up throughout the whole
that's
season?
the
Now,
question.
the Yankees are the second team in postseason history to have their first 2 games of the postseason scored 10-plus runs. Only the 1970 Orioles did that, and they won the World Series. So I am inclined to say the Yankees. I'm going to say the Yankees. I'm not biased. Not at all. I'm not wearing the Yankee socks or anything, but I'm going to say the Yankees. I like the Braves. I really like the Braves. I like their pitching. What they did to the Cincinnati Reds, that's a good lineup. What they did to the Reds, I think they can compete with anyone in the NL defensively, pitching-wise with Max Fried and Ian Anderson. And with all the injuries they had to deal with this year pitching-wise, it's so impressive that they did that. I do think they can beat the Dodgers. I'm sorry, Drew. I'm sorry. I hate to say it, but I think Yankees. I like
unbiased opinion as well.
Yeah,
Wow, everyone's sock game tonight.
I do. I like Yankees Braves as my pick. I think I honestly think that would be a 7-game series. And since I said pitching wins in October, I would have to say the Yankees would win in 7 because they have the best pitcher in the American League in Garrett Cole.
Yeah. All right, bold predictions, and we've heard both of yours. I do want to point out, not that this is my prediction, but I just feel like we'd be remiss if we didn't mention that the Miami Marlins have yet to lose a playoff series in their existence. They've made the playoffs twice since being formed, and they have won 2 World Series. So take that as you will, and I think that's the perfect note to end the show. So that does it for us this week, but be sure to continue our discussion on our Twitter page at IUSTV Sports, on Facebook and Instagram at IUSTV Sports. You can give us any suggestions. You can throw out your ideas. Who do you think is going to win the World Series? Let us know and ask any questions that you might have. So toss it up, find out if we'll catch it, and we'll see you next time.